We are at My Child First, and we are very privileged to have wonderful fathers who've joined us to share their stories with us today on Father's Day. This is the 21st of June 2020, and here we are. So let me start with bringing in our first guest who was here promptly on time. And I'm going to call upon Kartik, and he's a new parent and he would like to share his story. Welcome, Kartik.
Thank you. Thank you, Divya. So it's Father's Day. I'm going first. So happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. So some of you in the audience are already fathers. Some of you may be looking to become one, and others may be already on the journey. I would like to begin by addressing some of the stories you hear about becoming fathers, the really crazy ones. Each and every one of those wild stories out there are 100% true. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe only the really crazy ones. But now, becoming the parent is a wonderful experience, and people love to share it. And I'm no different. What's more is that so many people have this experience, and it's not unique, and it's unique to them. For me, when my wife found out that she was pregnant, it took me a few days to register what was in store, and I will let you know when I've actually fully registered what's going to happen. But yeah, for the record, the baby's already here, and I'm still digesting. As I want to, since we are here, I want to share some of my experience which might help you in terms of what helped me, and some of the things that did not work. So. One of the things that I want to share is, and it might surprise you all, is that I actually hadn't been cutting out news from my life, and I had made a conscious decision not to tune into the news or reading the newspaper. I cannot tell you how much this helped me when your partner is expecting a lot of resources, both physically and mentally, go towards this endeavor. And I'd been finding the news very draining and making me feel not so good. Since I had tuned the news out of my life, I was insulated from a lot of the hyperventilating news out there. To my surprise, I was actually able to navigate everyday life without much problem. Some of you in the audience may be wondering, how did I get my news? Well, I may have stopped watching the news or reading it, but my friends and colleagues had not. So they were very helpful when they found out that I had tried to get rid of the news and went out of their way to let me know what I was missing. So I was always up to date with what was happening, but without the shouting matches and extreme emotions. I also cut out social media from my life to have all unnecessary triggers taken away. The next thing was to try and stay healthy, and I use this term with caution. For me, staying healthy was a very low benchmark. My aim was to be able to get up in the middle of the night and drive to the hospital if required and stay awake and be functional till everything was done. There's no point in me being a baggage in case of an emergency. So I started walking a bit, built exercise into my day so I could stay fit to whatever extent. Unfortunately, going to the gym was not an option for me. So this was the next best thing, to build exercise into my schedule. So this was pre-COVID times. I could take the metro. I ran up the stairs. Yes, they still exist. And whenever possible, I used to run up the stairs in when I reached my office. Another thing that was really good, and I was very fortunate, was that I had a lot of friends who were generally very encouraging and positive in their outlook. This kept me in good spirits. All of us have bad days, and I'm no different. Some days are not so great, and you have an exhausting day at work, and your partner's going through a lot of emotional mood swings because of change in hormones, and you're feeling overwhelmed. Well, it helps to have a support structure. It also meant that I had to distance myself from some energy vampires. This was a little tough. We all know such people. Some of them were my colleagues, and it was not difficult with them. But some of them were and are still my friends. But having them around at that time was not helpful. So, and this was particularly difficult because in some cases you have these relationships for many years. Some of them from school and college, and at that time I got some really good advice when somebody pointed out, you have to ask yourself the question, are they your friend for X number of years, or they were your friend X number of years ago? This is a bit of a difficult pill to swallow. When you get asked this question, it makes you evaluate and realize that you and your friends no longer care about the same things and you the way as you did in the past. But it's important to know that you still have appreciation for them in your life. But right now they're not helpful, so they need to be out and need to keep some distance. The next thing that stays in the mind is the doctor visits. Um, So something that we had talked about was to keep some buffer funds. Sometimes you do run into some unexpected tests which need to be done, so it's always helpful to have that. Again, the visits to the doctors are interesting to say the least, uh, and sometimes your heart is racing, especially if during the anomaly scan time period, and other times you're just going through the motions and can feel quite robotic. Um, but we had planned for a few things in terms of what to do, me and my partner, and some of those decisions panned out, and others didn't. One of them was that we planned, say, hey, if let's say insurance doesn't pay for everything, or let's say there is a significant delay in the payment, what do we do? I did some scenario planning around that. Who does what when she goes into labor? Because at that time you're working off muscle memory. What goes into the hospital bag? What do you tell to the doctor? Have your emergency numbers in case, and in case you need to consult any people after delivery, what having those handy. This actually did help because when the baby comes, there is very little mental energy left to do research, and you're relying a lot on what you had done before. Some things actually didn't work out. We had planned to purchase some baby stuff uh, closer to the due date, but then there's some thing called the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and we couldn't get any of the baby stuff. And one of my friends also was blessed with a baby around the same time, and he said something pretty, interesting, and I think that sticks. It says, I think there's a life lesson here. I don't think we need as much as we thought we did. Most of it is just wants. And he shared how he was able to just reach out to his local community WhatsApp and get some stuff for his kid, and how people even help stitching clothes for the baby. Then comes the delivery itself. This is something which there's a big difference between what you see on the media and what happens in real life. They don't concur, especially the depiction of the pain during labor. It turns out that women's pain threshold actually goes up during the delivery time, and women do experience pain. It's real, but Mother Nature's right there to help protect them. And it turns out the brain generates painkillers and amnesia to overcome a lot of the experience. Speaking of amnesia, women do tend to become a little forgetful during this time, and not just during labor but generally during the 9 months. It's not, it may be obvious in some cases and not so obvious in others. I think it's Mother Nature's way of helping us humans out. Otherwise women would never agree to produce another human. And I also found out that men can also be very helpful during delivery, especially by being cheerleaders, women to push through the proverbial pain barrier. Some of you who played sports would be able to relate to this in some extent. While you're playing, as I say, twist your ankle and you're in extreme pain or excruciating pain. But if the game is close, you can actually say, hey, I'm warm, I'll just push through the pain and then worry about it when it settles down. And then uh, the pain actually increases after you start cooling down. And you hear about these stories all the time that people playing with broken bones, and they were just able to overcome that significant pain just by the power of their mind. And women have that superpower during birthing, and men can just help during that state by just encouraging and helping them, just say, hey, no, just push through this, you can make it to the next level. And that was a very insightful thing that I got to learn. Lastly, the birth itself, you go in as two and sometimes come back as three, maybe more, depending on your situation. Then later, when you come back home and you go back to bed to sleep, you wake up usually after 2 hours or so and find out that there's another person in the room, and that's when it hits you that this one person in the room used to not be there just a few days ago. Then you realize that now this person is not really going to go anywhere anytime soon, and you are the one who has to take care of this person. And there are these wave of emotions that hit you and wash over you, and then immediately it comes down because the crying is really loud. Who knew something so small came with loudspeakers pre-installed? Speaking of care, you also need to take care of the person who delivered the baby. Mostly after delivery, everybody's interested in the newborn and spending time with them, and that's obviously uh, very relevant. But we can't forget that just a few days prior, everybody was checking on the person who's the creator of this new human, and now that person becomes completely secondary. She still needs to be taken care of and checked as before. After deliveries, women's bodies go through a lot of changes, and their hormones are like fluctuating, and there's a lot of mood swings. So just staying calm at that time and being an emotional support, not just for the child but also for the wife, and if you have other kids, then also. So that doesn't mean you can't have bad days. You can always put up your hands up and ask for help. It's quite surprising how many people will step up in this need of hour that you have. Uh, and it does bring, that additional appreciation for your own mother and father. And since it's Father's Day, I'll focus on the fathers. And you just realize a few things about your own father, on how he took care of you while you were growing up. And no matter how flawed you think he was, you realize that he was doing his best. And what he did what he could to provide a safe and supportive future for you. And then you realize that you know it would be just amazing if you're just able to emulate him. And on that note, happy Father's Day.
Thank you so much, Kartik. It's really well articulated, but we could really feel those significant emotions come and go. Um, Thank you very much for sharing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Divya.